And let me offer you a very warm welcome here to the Barony Hall, one of the jewels in the crown of the Strathclyde University estate, a place where we have lots of celebrations, international conferences, banquets, but most importantly, we graduate our students just as we are today. So before us, we've got a great array of graduands, and here on the stage with us as well. Nice to see such a fantastic turnout, and a very warm welcome to the families and friends and supporters of these fantastic students who, over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, will be transformed from graduands to graduates of the University of Strathclyde, celebrating their great achievements. Of course, today we're going to be celebrating their achievements, but on occasion we also have a special treat for you to join in, and that's when we award an honorary degree from the university to people who have had high accomplishment in their careers, whether in their particular professional domain or to society or to economy. And this afternoon we've got someone that's made a contribution in all three domains, and that's Sir Mark Walport, who is with us this afternoon, about whom you'll hear a little bit more shortly. He'll be introduced at the start of the ceremony. Mark will give us some reflections, then we'll get about the business of graduation. So to the graduands, you'll find yourselves coming across this stage. It'll be a 30-second walk. It'll probably feel like a 5-minute walk for you. Come along here, I will cap you, which will confer the degree upon you, and then at the end of that process, I'm going to give you an update on the university. This piece of furniture I have before me, apart from giving me a modicum of social distancing, it's a bit of a historical piece. As you'll hear later, we're over 200 years old as an institution, but we got our charter in 1964. It used to be that graduates would come along and kneel on this, and either the Vice-Chancellor or the Chancellor would cap them. That doesn't feel quite equitable these days, so we're going to stand and look at each other as I cap you. But I've knelt on this piece of furniture 3 times in my career for bachelor's, master's and PhD, and at my reckoning, we've had about 150,000 knees on this kneeler over the years. So you're going to be in a piece of furniture that's of historical relevance, and you're also literally following in the footsteps of many that have gone before you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, you're here to relax and enjoy yourselves. Of course, you will politely applaud as your family member or friend comes across the stage, but it's a Friday afternoon. You can also make sure they know that you're here in the hall as well as they come along, in an appropriate way, of course. But relax and enjoy yourself. I'll now declare this congregation formally open, and I'll invite Professor Tim Bedford, who's the Associate Principal for Research and Innovation, to introduce our honorary graduate. Thank you very much.
Principal and Vice-Chancellor, I have the honour to present to you Sir Mark Walport. Sir Mark is a unique individual who has held 3 of the most influential research leadership roles in the UK. 3 of the great offices of research leadership, you might call them. As Director of the Wellcome Trust, as Chief Scientific Advisor for the UK Government, and as Founding Chief Executive Officer of UKRI. In doing so, he became an internationally influential champion of the open science agenda, and he has shaped the institutional landscape of UK research and innovation for the foreseeable future. Sir Mark built his research career specialising in immunology and the genetics of rheumatic diseases. He got his PhD in 1986 at Cambridge, and through his research career made major contributions to the understanding of autoimmune disease. He studied the complement system, part of our innate immune system consisting of proteins in the blood that can be activated to attack viruses or bacteria. And Sir Mark studied patients with lupus and identified ways that deficiencies in their complement system led to their autoimmune disease. He became Professor of Medicine and Head of the Division of Medicine at Imperial College before going on to become Director of the Wellcome Trust from 2003 to 2013. Managing one of the world's best endowed research funders, he strongly supported public engagement activities, and in 2006 committed Wellcome Trust to open access and open science, asking that the results of its funding be published in open access journals. This commitment to outreach and open science has been a key theme of Sir Mark's work in research leadership. In 2012, he co-authored the influential Royal Society report, Science as an Open Enterprise, which set out how the UK could and should build the institutional architecture for open science. In 2012, he said, "The bottom line is very simple. We want the science we fund to have the maximum impact, and it can only have maximum impact if it has the maximum distribution." Then in 2013, Sir Mark was appointed as Chief Scientific Advisor to the UK government and quickly delivered a landmark speech called Rigour and Openness in 21st Century Science. This was both bold and a very thoughtful analysis of the opportunities for collaborative research involving public and private partnerships, as well as international collaboration, which set out the benefits of intelligence sharing, but which also acknowledged concerns which have risen to prominence recently due to global tensions about the need to take care about sharing certain kinds of data. His leadership of the First Wellcome Trust, and then as Chief Scientific Advisor, and ultimately as Chief Executive of UKRI, put the UK firmly at the forefront of open science and making it an exemplar for other leading nations. Now, as Chief Scientific Advisor, Sir Mark was influential in the development of the report from the Department of Bay's Energy and Industrial Strategy called Our Plan for Growth, Science and Innovation. This confirmed government commitment to an industrial strategy. It set in train a series of Blackett reports, many co-authored by Sir Mark, which set out opportunities for science and technology to support different aspects of the economy. Importantly, it prompted also the Nurse Review, which took a fundamental look at the way research councils are organised and recommended the creation of what we now call UKRI. And at a time of austerity, the government confirmed the need to invest in science and technology and research more broadly in support of an industrial strategy, something that we very much hope the present government will remember. Sir Mark left his role as CSA and became the Chief Executive Designate for UKRI, and working closely with Sir John Kingman as Chair Designate, the shape of UKRI and its future funding and organisation were set out, merging research councils, Research England and Innovate UK into a single organisation, the biggest reorganisation of UK research in history. And while building UKRI, which led to a much improved, though perhaps still not yet fully realised, integration of research, innovation and place, he led a step change in investment in support of the industrial strategy and what was then the 2.4% target for investment in R&D as a proportion of UK GDP. This has been of very real significance for this university, with its distinctive focus across research excellence and industrial and societal impact, as exemplified by the work we've carried out in Glasgow City Innovation District and the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation District, with the new National Manufacturing Institute Scotland and the Medicines Manufacturing Innovation Centre. Strathclyde's mission as a place of useful learning, with its distinctive focus on building our knowledge-based economy through developing one of the UK's leading innovation ecosystems, has benefited hugely from the policy direction set out at this time by Sir Mark and his colleagues. Sir Mark is a Fellow of the Academy of Medical Sciences and of the Royal Society and of Scotland's National Academy, the Royal Society of Edinburgh. And today we welcome him to the Strathclyde family, and we're delighted that he accepted our invitation to do so. So it is with great pleasure, Principal and Vice-Chancellor, that with the authority of Senate, I ask you to confer upon Sir Mark the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
Mark, I create you Doctor of Science, honoris causa. Congratulations on a wonderful professional career and the impact you've had for good in the UK and beyond. Many congratulations and welcome to the Strathclyde community.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Principal and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Tim Bedford, fellow graduates from today's ceremony, and all of your guests, whom I'm confident are rightly enormously proud of your achievements. It's a humbling experience to be awarded this honorary degree by the University of Strathclyde, and I'm only fortunate enough to be receiving this honorary degree because of the very many people who've supported me and mentored me throughout my entire career, and through the combined efforts of the many people with whom I've worked in teams and partnerships over very many years. And here I think it's important to emphasize how powerful mentorship has been, of identifying people throughout one's career who are willing to provide mentorship, and of paying their efforts back by, in turn, mentoring others oneself. This city and this university mean much to me, because my father, who recently died at the great age of 101, was born, brought up, and went to medical school in Glasgow, and my early childhood holidays were spent visiting my grandparents who lived in this great city. He trained during the war at Anderson's College of Medicine. And many years ago, he passed on to me a small portrait medallion by the Glasgow artist James Tassie of Professor John Anderson, to whom the University of Strathclyde can directly trace its origin. Tassie was an extraordinary man. He created exquisite miniature portrait plaques in wax, and his innovation was to develop a method of reproducing these by creating molds from the wax sculptures, which he used to reproduce the portraits in fine detail by filling them with an easily fusible lead potash glass of his own invention. And John Anderson was an extraordinary man. He was professor of Oriental languages and then in natural philosophy from 1757 to 1796 at the University of Glasgow. But fortunately, I think for Strathclyde in the end, he fell out comprehensively with the university in his later years. And he left the money in his will to create what was to be known as Anderson's University, for the good of the public and the improvement of science, which he intended to be significantly different to the University of Glasgow. His will was extraordinarily detailed. He specified that the university was to be managed by 81 trustees, all of whose names he specified, consisting of 9 classes, so it was 9 by 9. The first class was of tradesmen. Then there were agriculturalists, artists, among whom the very first he named was James Tassie, manufacturers or merchants, to use his words, all ingenious persons who work at manufactures or who transport them from one place to another's, mediciners, not a term we use now, lawyers, divines, natural philosophers, including one Dr. Gillies, who was historiographer to the King for Scotland. And this, of course, is a post that survives to this very day. Finally, the 9th class of trustees were his kinsmen, his relatives. But these classes of trustees tell us something very important about John Anderson's intent, that education, which he perceived as being useful knowledge, should be provided to people of all social groups. And rather remarkably, he specified in his will that the professor of natural philosophy in his university should give lectures in the city of Glasgow to be called the mathematical course every year, and that the same professor should also give an annual course to be called the ladies' course of physical lectures, with the aim of making them the most accomplished ladies in Europe, which I think is still the case today. I think that a reincarnated John Anderson would be very proud of how his university had evolved. He knew the importance of engineering, and in 1763 had presented James Watt with a Newcomen engine to repair. So he would be delighted that the Vice-Chancellor, the Principal of Strathclyde, is such a distinguished engineer and the President of the Royal Academy of Engineering. You, this afternoon's graduates, come from the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences and from Strathclyde Business School. Anderson would recognise all of you as the students that he wished to benefit from the education of his university, as natural philosophers of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, and the students of the business school who in later life would be able to populate the many classes of trustees, though I hope that there are no longer 81 trustees for the University of Strathclyde. Now, whilst there is no doubt that universities provide useful knowledge, they provide this in a context that is of overwhelming importance. What they do is provide an education underpinned by respect for the importance and value of inquiry, skepticism, and debate, and of freedom of speech. And the Scottish universities, amongst which Strathclyde is a distinctive and leading member, have a proud history of being in the forefront of creating and reflecting the values of the European Enlightenment, building on the important role of Scotland in that Enlightenment of the 17th and 18th century, where it was one of the principal countries in Europe in leading the Enlightenment, with so many great names of people actually that Tassie, in some cases, gave us the only accurate depiction that we have. Now, there's a motto that appears beneath John Anderson's name on the Tassie medallion, and this is Conscius Recti et Firmus, which translates, with thanks to my professor, Professor Paul Cartledge, for his scholarly translation, as cognizant of the right and steadfast, or to extend its meaning slightly, cognizant of what is right and steadfast in its defense. All of you today, graduating, are going into the world of work or returning to it at a time of enormous flux of demographic change, political and environmental change. It's also a time of astonishing technological innovation. We are living through an industrial revolution which is at least as important and disruptive as the first industrial revolution of the 17th and the 18th centuries. And all of the new knowledge that is being discovered and its application through innovation, the innovation that is being created, is going to be essential for your prosperity and that of future generations. Our planet Earth is your oyster, but planet Earth is in need of great care if it's going to be able to nurture us and the other species with which we share our planet. So hold dearly to the values of the University of Strathclyde and take every advantage of the exceptional education that is provided. So on behalf of all of us, I thank the university for conferring on all of us our degrees this afternoon, and I wish all of you, my fellow graduates, the very best for the future. Remain cognizant of what is right and steadfast in its defense. Thank you very much.
Principal and Vice-Chancellor, in the name of the University and by the authority of Senate, present to you these students for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy for Research in English, Kelsey Morgan Entrican. Rukhsar Hussain. Kate Wilson. For the degree of Master of Research in English, Claire Emily Binning. For the degree of Master of Letters in Creative Writing, Martina Elizabeth Bolt Christmas. Giovanni Sebastian Cardillo. Ailsa Curry. Jennifer Lauren Dempster. Stuart Derek Docherty. William Robert Benison Garner. Samuel James Golding. Scott Hay. Alana Elizabeth Lockhart. Charlotte Ann MacDonald. Fiona Kennedy Nichol. Sheena Templeton Wu. Megan Ridgway. Hayley Claire Weir. In interdisciplinary English studies, Shua Suki. Deborah Crow. Grace Richardson. Megan Taylor Smith. In digital journalism, William James Angus. Niall William McGregor Houston. Hane Kapoor. Cameron McPherson. Iris Passy. Aditya Lakshman Soyanke. In media and communication, Harshita Hunetja. Natalie Rochelle Martinez. Drishti Neelish. Anthony Joseph O'Neill. Somtona Abudunde Uzumba. Hansika Manoj Ramchandani. For the degree of Master of Science in Diplomacy and International Security, Lawaza Batul Akram. Nashwa Halal Abdullah Al Sanani. Stefan Butler. Corinne Collins. Ashley Ann Cox. Susie Emmanuel Noachi. Greg Ferguson. Amy Hannah Fraser. Lewis Ian Massey. Olivia Maria McKinney. Jade McClellan. Kiara Murray. Amy Elizabeth Perry. Josh Strickland. Anne Thompson. In health history, Siobhan Cameron. Rebecca Rose Frew. Bethany Higgins. Danielle Jones. Charlotte Reed. Emma Warnick. Abby Ellen Welsh. In historical studies, James Kenneth Doran. Jennifer Faith Gray. Daniel Keenan. Scott James Loudon. Sophie Neve Morris. Andrew Polar. Olivia Karen Ross. Mark James Slater. Holly Watt. In applied gender studies, Karen Allen. Maureen Adaku Atuma. Jasmine Olivia Brogdon. Gabrielle Cameron. Rowan Moore Clark. Amy Jacqueline Cowan. Amelia Fox Townley. Mary Frances Galloway. Rowan Eva Stewart Leddingham. Hannah Nichol. Kirsty Roerson. In Applied Gender Studies Research Methods, Zinat Sadaf Aliaboli. Holly Duncan. Emma Hackney. Ailey McGilchrist Young. In Business Translation and Interpreting, Harry William Alexander. For the degree of Bachelor of Arts in English, Jordan Gary Barr. In History and Politics and International Relations, Jake Kelly. Ashley Conley. In History with Politics and International Relations, Keisha Watson. In History with Psychology, Liam Devine. In Journalism and Creative Writing and English, Jodie Donovan. In Journalism and Creative Writing and History, Abigail Lorraine Georgia Harvey. For the degree of Postgraduate Diploma in Health History, Ellie Swanston. In Digital Journalism, Andrew Hinshelwood McKay. Aidan Hugh Maxwell. Catherine Eileen McDougall. In Business Translation and Interpreting, Sarah Nadesh Belmati Sherakui.
Principal and Vice-Chancellor, in the name of the University and by the authority of Senate, I present to you these students. For the degree of Master of Science in Applied Economics, Saba Zahar Khamis Al-Hosni. Prince Gode Anyenwe. Finnan O'Brien Boyce Bates. Nicolo Brazzelli. Alison Ann Catalano. Patience Chatsika. Emma Jane Congreve. Chiara Crummy. Kabindra Purush Dakal. Ewan Graham John Dixon. Neil Gardiner. Tanya Goyle. Catherine Hutchison. Nimrod Iritz. Jahiz Ahmad Khan. Ross McAlinden. Ryan James O'Hanlon. Neha Dilip Pawar. Akaranithi Falbanjong. Shashank Soman Pillai. Shalaka Sahasrabudi. Stravanya. Jack Williamson. In Economics and Finance, Ezekiel Akban. Serene Shanawaz. Callum Wright. In Economics and Policy of Energy and Climate Change, Matthias Garate Marin. Ronnie McLean Gardiner. Lauren Ella Hunter. Rhys Jenkins. Shraddha Setumadhavan Nair. Ryota Sasaki. Nicole Sandra Skinner. Bethany Christiana McLean Smart. Orla Hope Turner. For the degree of Master in International Business with a Modern Language, Jenny Louise Murray. For the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Accounting, Ilgun Eroglu. Elisha Ferguson. Nicholas Taylor Hutchin. Rachel Claire Leese. In Accounting and Business Law, John Clark. In Business Management, Ewan Brady. Michael Dodds. Louise Hanlon. Lorraine M. Logan. Anna Manson. Vicky Dorothy MacArthur. Janine Sarah McFarland. Michelle McNeil. Anna Louise Mutter. Elizabeth Lauren Simcoe. Carol Ann Simpson. Greg Tierney. Gillian Watson. Amy White. Alan Ewan Cameron. Mark Chesney. Audrey Elizabeth Doyle. William George Farrell. Andrea Faulkner. Ryan James McCafferty. Becky McEwen. Lindsay Mary Montgomery. Jared Rickey. Joseph Giles Schroeder. John Smith. Christopher Brian Surgeoner. Alasdair McKinley Smith. David Allen. Mark Daniel John Allen. Rachel Amanda Cotton. Jack Evans. Angela Faulkner. David Wilson Guthrie. Joanne McKinnon. James O'Neill. Emma Smith. Louise Tennessee. Scott Watson. In economics, Omar Salim. In economics and business law, Hamid Mahmoud Ahmed Hamis Al-Rashdi. In finance, Bryony Sarah Moll. Abdulaziz A. Awayas. Jingwei Da. Ben Lawson. Qatar Isadik. Retaj Salim Mohammed Al-Barwani. In finance and business analysis and technology, Ross Malach. In finance and business law, Aithar Nasser Saif Al-Makbali. In finance and hospitality and tourism management, Jumana Mustafa Mohammed Al-Lawati. Tin Pui Alison Swen. In finance and human resource management, Hannah Lamont McLean. In finance and management, Matthew Gear. In hospitality and tourism management and marketing, Christopher Welsh. In human resource management, Ross Mitchell-Ferguson. In human resource management and marketing, Alistair Kavanagh. Nathan Alexander Josiah. In international business with a modern language, Martin Barnsley. In international business with human resource management, Neha Khan. In international business with management, Cameron Andrew Imrie. In management, Joe Ewan Stephen Mole Williams. Jordan Smiley. In management and human resource management, Joshua McIlvany. In management and marketing, Zara Comerford. In marketing, Kyle McQueen. Jailin Zhang. Eniola Abutundi. In marketing and human resource management, Lauren Mack. In marketing and psychology, Sharandeep Kaur. For the degree of Bachelor of Business Administration, Ali Darlene Gibson. Lion Hussein Mal Allah Al-Lawati. Tyler Swinfen. For the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Human Resource Management, Lisa Emily Milby. For the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Accounting and Finance, Hadi Al-Atta. For the degree of Master of Science in Applied Economics, Ryan Conley. For the degree of Master of Science in Economics and Finance, Oluwadamamisi Lorraine Ajamamejebe.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's give the class of 2022 a big round of applause. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, and now you too are Strathclyde graduates, let me reiterate our very warm and sincere welcome to this wonderful ceremony, a day that none of you will forget because it marks several years of hard work, and now you've graduated in front of your families, your friends, your supporters and your classmates. And today we welcome visitors from all over Scotland, from across the UK, and of course from a wonderful international community too. We're delighted to see every one of you here to join in our celebrations. Importantly, Strathclyde is an institution where freedom of thought is valued and encouraged, and we're a place that is both tolerant and inclusive, and where people of diverse national, cultural and social backgrounds come together to get a Strathclyde education and a shared student experience. At Strathclyde, we all benefit from having staff and students from over 130 countries here, because ours is a socially progressive community, one that seeks to be an exemplar for modern society because we're plural, multicultural, and we seek to be enlightened. It's our responsibility, and graduates, it's now your responsibility to continue to challenge unacceptable practices, including by those in power, perhaps particularly by those in power. And boy, we've had plenty of behaviour to frown upon in recent months and years, not only here in our own country, but through the disaster that we see in war in Europe now with the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia. But in your own lives, please use reason and exemplify the best features of a modern, progressive society. But of course, most importantly, we're here today to acknowledge your hard work, the learning that you've built up, and the successful completion of your degree courses. These are now your passports to the next stage in your lives, to your careers, and to society, in spite, as you heard Mark saying earlier, the flux and uncertainty that we're surrounded with. And remember, in flux and uncertainty, there still lies opportunity, not least of which an opportunity for you to make a difference in whatever you choose to do. And here we are, thank goodness at last, back in the hall together and celebrating graduations in person. The past 2.5 years have been tough for all of us through the coronavirus pandemic, a global challenge, of course, which has had far-reaching and unprecedented impacts in all of our lives. And the pandemic has certainly challenged our health systems, it's impacted our economies, and that's still in a parlous state, and it has changed the way in which we work and study. But what it has done It shows what society can achieve through collaboration, through focus, and when we work together, we can make a difference. And it's placed science, research, and innovation at the forefront of finding the solutions to the challenges that we face. And it was science, universities, and innovative industries that delivered vaccines for the COVID-19 virus in record time, including contributions from this institution. And it will be science, engineering, and education that will help us address other pressing issues such as climate change. I'll pause for a moment just to reflect on that requirement and necessity for good science. And we have great scientists here in Strathclyde, but we've also got a great scientist in the front row with us here today, because it's my privilege and pleasure to bring to your attention that we have a Nobel laureate in our midst today, someone who's won a Nobel Prize, and that's Scotland's own David Macmillan. David, you're here to celebrate your sister's achievements, and very welcome back to Scotland. He's actually come for the football at the weekend, but that's another story altogether. But let's reflect on climate change, because it's almost exactly a year ago now that Glasgow had the privilege of hosting COP26 here in this fine city where the world came to us. And now we're getting ready for another momentous occasion in Egypt, as on Sunday things kick off for COP27, where we need to keep the momentum. That Glasgow Climate Pact that was created, we depend on everyone to do their obligation, to fulfill their duty about action. Rhetoric is important, political discourse is fine, but we need to move and move fast. And we were pleased last year, just 2 weeks before COP, we hosted the Conference of Youth here on the campus. Hundreds of young people from around the world here to make their voices heard, to set out an agenda for my generation who have failed in so many ways. But together we can actually make a difference. Alok Sharma, who is still, for the next couple of days, president of COP, was here on campus. And to his credit, he came here. It wasn't an easy ride for him. He came here and listened to the challenges and the agenda for these young people, and he took those messages back when we went down to the Clyde. I spent the fortnight in the Blue Zone there, interacting with some of these leaders. And we have to, every one of us, but this institution has to respond to that climate challenge, and Sir Mark talked about that as well. It's the existential challenge for the 21st century, and we also have to decarbonise in this campus. But as we saw these effective and committed people come here, I had the privilege of meeting John Kerry and talking to him about what needed to be done from a technological point of view, John being Special Presidential Climate Envoy. Michael Bloomberg was in the city, whom you'll know, ex-mayor of New York City, a fellow electrical engineer, I have to say, so that was good. But we talked about the role of cities in particular, and Glasgow is an exemplar, because we're seeking here in this city to decarbonise by 2030. That's going to be a stretch, but at least it's an absolute commitment. But the highlight for us, apart from participation in hosting, is that we had the privilege of having ex-President Barack Obama here on our campus, not for a flying visit, but for half a day here, where again he wanted to hear the voices of young people. It's so important. It's not about idealism, it's about the unfettered requirement on their part to do the right thing. And he came here to meet young people from around the world. You know, they were activists. They weren't protesters or demonstrators. They were activists. And, you know, social scientists, people with a business background, humanities, as well as engineers and scientists, to come again with an agenda. And as they left our learning and teaching building, where I hope you will join us later this afternoon, he arrived in secrecy because of security. But through the powers of social media, you can't keep a secret too long. And by the time he left the building, there were hundreds of people there to let him know how much they appreciated his presence here. But he turned round to them on the steps before he went into his car and shouted 2 words to them. And it was this: get active. And I say that to you, students and graduates of Strathclyde, get active. Active in your careers, active in what you do for yourselves and those around you in society, and please play your full part in making a difference. And of course, you'll have gathered I'm from Glasgow as well. I was born just on the other side of the Clyde in a town called Govan. My father and my 2 brothers worked in Fairfield shipyards, and I get the benefit of their encouragement and my mother's insistence that I went to university. But Govan's motto is nihil sine labore, which means nothing without hard work. And I commend that to you. I embrace that ethos every day I come in here. Take that spirit into your next part of your careers, because you've now become Strathclyde alumni, and you're the latest of our university torchbearers, if you will, just like those from many generations of graduates before you. And with all that you've now come through successfully, I'm sure you agree that you couldn't have done this without the backing and encouragement of these wonderful people in the hall with you today. And it's fitting that we should acknowledge their part of the work that they've done to help your successful completion of your degrees. Our graduates, and indeed the university at large, owe you a great deal of gratitude. So graduates, staff, let's say thank you to the families, friends and supporters for all that they've done. And of course, for our academic staff, your success is ultimately their reward. We've worked hard to give you a first-class education and an excellent student experience for all of our students, regardless of background. So, graduates and families, please join with me in thanking this excellent academic group. Now, I'd like to thank Sir Mark for such a wonderful reflection on the history of this place, not least about our founder, John Anderson, and take some of those lessons away with you, because we're 226 years old as an institution, although I still like to think of it as a 200-year-old startup with that same spirit, drive and entrepreneurial application, and retaining that same sense of purpose. And throughout our history, Strathclyde has remained faithful to our founding principles. As you understood, we were the only higher education institution to be established through John Anderson's will during the time of the Enlightenment. A great cauldron of drive, about challenge, about connection to society. And that's a real distinction for us. And we still try to make that mission wholly relevant today in the 21st century. Our founder, John Anderson, natural philosopher, as you've heard from Mark, a bit of a polymath, a real giant of a man. He had strong links with Benjamin Franklin, the American inventor and academic. And Franklin was involved in establishing the University of Pennsylvania in 1751 under the motto of useful knowledge. And that inspired Anderson, as did the conversations he was having with the Scottish Enlightenment figures and what was happening in mainland Europe. And he derived that notion of useful learning. It was inspired by the fact that he was also a curmudgeon, and he wanted to show in Glasgow what could be done in a university that was connected to society. And that's never been more relevant in our 200-year history as it is today. And please take that useful learning reflection away with you. It still reflects our purpose as a leading international technological university that is committed to being socially progressive. And for example, as you've come here to the Barony Hall today, you'll have passed many of our buildings within which our academics and our students are developing drugs to diagnose and fight disease. For example, we have many drugs out on trial in the areas of cancer treatment, kidney disease, infection management, and inflammatory diseases. Our academics are working on the production of low-carbon and renewable energy technologies and policy solutions to tackle climate change and to establish a low-carbon economy. Reflecting our mission from 200 years ago, we are now trying to revolutionize global manufacturing to help create the fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0, through AI, automation, robotics, advanced materials. I'm proud to share with you our students continue to work in low-income countries, establishing clean water and power supplies, deploying healthcare systems in remote communities, and introducing new telecommunications infrastructure. Our biomedical engineers are bringing prosthetic limb and bioengineering technologies to those in need, particularly in India. And we're also working tirelessly to inform public policy in the UK. Many of my academic colleagues here on the stage with me are constantly working to advise and to provide data and evidence to drive better policy, whether it's on education, health, economy, energy, innovation, and many others. Our staff in our Technology and Innovation Centre, which is just down on George Street, they are working closely with industry on energy, photonics, and pharmaceuticals. The well-known American inventor Thomas Edison, another electrical engineer, called his technical teams and his laboratories his inventions factory. And we like to think of our Technology and Innovation Centre as our innovations factory, catalysing a new growth here in Strathclyde's campus and into the rest of the city. And it's become Scotland's first innovation district, crowding in private sector investment, industries, SMEs, indigenous businesses, fueled by the great talent that we produce, such as all of you today, as well as the excellence of our research. And subject to our court's approval in the next 3 months, we're going to make another £100 million investment down in the corner between George Street, High Street and Ingram Street, fueled by a philanthropic donation we received last year that I'll tell you a little bit more about. But in there, we're working in fintech, quantum, advanced communications, 6G, space technology, and so much more. And by the way, who knew that in space technology outside California, Glasgow has the biggest satellite manufacturing capability in the world, with about 160 companies around here, and this university helping to glue that together through the talent that we educate and through the research that we do. But other people invest in us, and the investment I made reference to there was from Dr. Charles Wang, a double graduate from the Strathclyde Business School, with a PhD and MBA from our Department of Marketing. He contacted us just about 18 months ago to say that he wished to make a donation. So I engaged with him, and I didn't understand the quantum of what we were talking about until he told me he wanted to give us $70 million to drive forward our strategy, because he watched carefully what we were doing. He'd been inspired by the education he'd had here. We met with him. He made his donation, and you won't necessarily have heard of Charles. Serial entrepreneur based in California now. He has many companies, including one called Innova Medical, who produce most of the lateral flow tests that you will have been using and I've been using for the past 2.5 years. And Charles is now creating a £1 billion charitable foundation, and he started here with his alma mater. I'm meeting him in London a couple of weeks from now just to tell him how things are progressing, and I think Charles will be back to invest in what is the Strathclyde proposition. Because we talked about our innovation district here. Charles will be helping us financially to build that new innovation centre. Out at the airport, we have another innovation district called the National Manufacturing Institute for Scotland, making a nonsense of the fact that manufacturing has left these shores. Strathclyde has brought together Rolls-Royce, Airbus, Boeing, GSK, AstraZeneca, and now that we're mobile again, if you're leaving the airport either to London or wherever you're going to go, have a look to the northeast of the runway, and you'll see 2 new buildings. One's got a serrated roof, purple side, and there's a building next to it. That's a £200 million investment. Next to it is the Medicines Manufacturing Innovation Centre, working with our pharma colleagues, translating research into impact and driving between what's going on here in the city centre and out in the airport, £2 billion worth of gross value added in the Scottish economy. But most importantly, as well as engage with business and industry, it's what we do with you that counts most, transforming your lives, the lives of your families, through a good Strathclyde education. And these are some of the reasons that we've had some independent recognition over recent years about not just what we're doing, but how we're doing it. We're the only university to have won the Times Higher UK University of the Year twice. We won the Entrepreneurial University of the Year, largely down to the offices of our business school. We're keeping our fingers crossed because we're shortlisted again this year for the UK Entrepreneurial University of the Year. And 18 months ago, we were the Sunday Times Scottish University of the Year and more. But that's reflection on my staff and reflection on the quality of our students. It's not about what we're achieving, but how we're doing it. And we're trying to have a disproportionate impact in the economy. Again, let me stress, through all of you, you are our most impactful contribution to society. It's your vision, your energy, your ideals, your values that will make a difference. And that will be the lasting contribution that Strathclyde will make to society. And as I was sharing with colleagues in Scottish Government only this morning, universities are an investment, not a cost to society. The Scottish Government puts about £1.2 billion a year into Scottish universities, which is welcome. But in return, they get about £10 billion worth of value into the economy. So when we face these challenging times, we still need to, excuse the term, double down on investments in these institutions. But certainly the achievements of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences that's represented today in the Strathclyde Business School gives me great cause for optimism. And we have highly achieved individuals with us here in the Business School. Peter McKiernan, Peter's on the stage with us today, in the Hunter Centre for Entrepreneurship, received the British Academy of Management's Cooper Medal for outstanding contribution and leadership. The Business School has also been ranked in the top 95 European business schools. David, many congratulations for that. Also, the Strathclyde Business School has been ranked in the Corporate Knights Better World MBA rankings, recognising that integration of sustainability and that business activity as well. Eleanor Shaw, who is with us as well, who is one of our associate principals. Now, Eleanor received the OBE at the start of the year for her services to entrepreneurship and education. And just last week, Eleanor and Professor Mary Spowage, who is with us on the stage, both received awards at the Scottish Women's Awards. One, Eleanor, for her contributions to education and entrepreneurship, and Mary for her contribution to accountancy. And Mary, she's maybe sitting in the second row, you'll not recognise her, but you'll have seen her on the TV and the radio a lot. She's the director of the Fraser of Allender Institute, which is never off for media. Eleanor, Mary, very many congratulations. And many more contributions to boot from our Humanities and Social Sciences faculty, our law visiting professor and alumna, Dame Eilish Angelini, who was one of the first leading legal advisors to the Scottish Government, was appointed to the Order of the Thistle. Professor Sir John Curtis, John again, you'll probably see more often than I do on the TV, talking about polling and government dynamics, received a Lifetime Award in Holyrood for their magazine's political awards. Alan Miller from our law school, Lifetime Achievement for Outstanding Dedication for Advocacy for Human Rights, and many others to boot. We should be absolutely proud of them, and I should also say our students are terrific too. English and journalism student and the Strathclyde Telegraph sub-editor Gemma Murphy won the Rising Star Award at the Student Publication Association's National Awards. And we have an elite sports group as well. Colleague Rufus McLean, who's in the Haas faculty, studying for social policy in Spanish, now has full caps for the Scottish rugby team, and we've now got 4 of our elite sportsmen in that Scottish squad. But Rufus just had his debut, scoring 2 tries for Scotland in a very resounding win over Tonga. And our Dean of the Haas faculty is here as well. Ian Rivers has just become a trustee and council member of the Academy of Social Sciences. This and much more that I won't go into because we don't have the time. Suffice to say, graduates, you've been educated by outstanding leaders in their field, and hopefully that enriched your experience while you were here. So let me move to conclusion. This is the exciting context within which you get your degrees today, because we place our students at the heart of everything that we do. We value in equal measure great education and research, and these two things linked together to create a strong connection too with society and business. And we are an international organisation. The best universities collaborate internationally, and we're no different. In America, our long-standing core partners are Stanford, MIT, and NYU, with strong and growing links with the University of Southern California, led by the Haas faculty, and the University of Waterloo in Canada, but also in China. In spite of the geopolitical flux, to use the euphemism, we still collaborate internationally, particularly in China with Peking and Tsinghua universities and the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and across the UK, and indeed, in spite of the travails and unnecessary thumps and bumps of Brexit, we still collaborate deeply with our friends and colleagues across Europe. Very, very important. And our response to COVID, for example, would not have happened without global international collaboration. That's good for society, it's good for students, it's good for researchers. But all of you have benefited from being part of an international university. It's helped you emerge with the skills necessary for your own careers and also to play a full part in the world. But very importantly, you've been exposed to the richness and the value of different cultures and traditions. But most importantly, please, leave here today understanding your obligations as global citizens. And we keep our doors wide open for education. We are, believe it or not, we have the 5th highest entrance requirements for universities in the UK, not in Scotland. And yet, amongst the research intensives in Scotland, we take the highest number of young people from the bottom 2 challenge quintiles in Scottish society. The communities that I belong to and I was brought up with, every year we've taken about 1,300, 500 of them or so for the most challenged quintile. And we see them all the way through. We journey with them through primary and secondary school, and get them in, keep them in, and then move them on to their careers. And our first graduation of the year, this year, as it is most years, was with the Children's University. And I'm the proud Chancellor of the Children's University, with 200 youngsters aged 5 to 14 here where you're sitting, with their capes and their mortarboards. It was a joy. With their families in here as well, the vast majority of whom have never been across the threshold of a university. A place not for them, a place that's for other parts of society. Not at all. We bring them in here, make them welcome, and we celebrate their youngsters' achievements. Because the kids get a digital passport. And if they go to the Glasgow Science Centre, they get a digital stamp. Go to the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery, usually with their parents, get a stamp. Night classes, extracurricular activities. And when they get enough stamps, usually age 5 to 10, they come up here and get a bachelor's degree from the Children's University. And I stand there and cap them. If they stay on for another couple of years, do more work, and their parents do get involved, they come up and get a master's degree from the Children's University. And yes, you've guessed it. Those that keep going to about 14 get a PhD from the Children's Universities. That's what's coming your way, colleagues. Highly qualified new undergraduates. And it's an important thing to do. I have to say selfishly, I really enjoy that ceremony because it's one of the few graduation ceremonies where I get to look tall with these 5 to 10-year-olds. But they came, a wee girl, 5-year-old, she was so excited. She ran across the stage and I was trying to cap her. She ran right under my cap. I had to bring her back to get her cap. But I won't go into the detail, but a good proportion of the parents have then come and taken access courses here at Strathclyde to get them back onto the education pipeline that they didn't have when they were at their kids' age. So let me conclude here now, please. Let me characterise your university 2022. I describe us as being distinctive. We have ambition, focus and momentum. Very importantly, we have to maintain the agility and commitment so necessary to navigate the uncertainties, both political and economic. But we will, and we have been, and will continue to do that. It's a great privilege for me to lead this great institution with the outstanding support I get from my executive team, as well as from the broader community of academics, professional services and support staff. And I would like to think, and I think I firmly believe, that our founder, John Anderson, that Mark spoke so well of, I think if he saw what we're doing now, he would recognise it as the realisation of his founding ambitions to create a place of useful learning. And to all of you in the Barony Hall today, I'm certain that you will have an enormous impact, not only in your career, but in society. And 2022 can truly become a vintage year. With that in mind, remember also, since we got our charter in '64, we've graduated about 200,000 students. So you're joining an army of Strathclyders out there in the world making a difference. So remember now as you leave us, whatever you do with your degree and wherever you choose to work, truly useful learning means that you should apply your knowledge for the benefit of others, make a positive impact for yourselves, and never forget the communities that you belong to. Please respect diversity, value freedom of expression and thought, and reach conclusions and resolve disputes through reason and tolerance, because these characterise the core values of your universities. We're all here now to mark your fantastic achievements. Well done in having your degrees awarded. And on behalf of the entire university, let me extend my sincere congratulations to each and every one of you and wish you every success in your future careers. Please stay in touch. Let us know how you're doing. Well done again, and enjoy the rest of this very special day. Thank you. Yes, a smile. I talk about 6G communications. We've used a very ancient form of communication there. I just got the thumbs up from the back of the hall to tell us that the weather's okay, which means that when we close, the stage party will process down the aisle, and we're going to make our way over to the Learning Teaching Building. It's a couple of blocks away. Please come with us to have a glass of wine and some cake and a chance to catch up. So with that, graduates, well done. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we have. To the families and friends, have a great day. Let me now declare the congregation closed, ask you to be upstanding, and we'll conclude. Thank you very much.